Good evening. Good evening. Thanks to everyone that's going to join. Those of you that will watch the replay, we thank you for supporting us at this time. Tonight, we're going to continue with our conversation, getting to the root of things. I pray that this conversation is reaching someone, helping someone along this journey called life. Because, baby, life will sure present us some obstacles and some hurdles, but we recognize that the race isn't given to the swift nor to the strong, but to him that endureth to the end. Um, Tonight, our conversation is going to be picked up tonight with Apostle Garrett, and he's going to go ahead and carry us on in.
No,
So,
we're gonna start off tonight. I'm gonna be quiet tonight. I gave you the 4 parts that we were gonna start off with, and I need you to touch on those 4 parts to start off, since I am always pretty much getting us started. So I want you to elaborate tonight so that everybody know that you have just as much knowledge as apostle. It's not always, and I don't want everybody to think that it's the apostle show or that apostle just be taking over and all of that, that you have some knowledge as well. So when you look at bargaining, you look at denial, you look at the fact that we don't want to accept, and the things that we talked about on Saturday, right? Do you remember all of them? We want to bargain. You still sitting there quiet. I want you to be able to really elaborate. Come on now, this is about us really helping people and not just about me doing the talking, not just about me. This is about us. This is what God has given. God gave you the topic, getting to the root of things, right? So if we're gonna get to the root of it,
yeah,
you sitting quiet.
no, I was.
No, you sitting quiet. You can work on that phone just like I work on my phone and still talk at the same time. No, I don't want you to. No, no. When we look at bargain, we talked about the fact that people are feeling a feeling of abandonment and feeling like they have been abandoned because of the fact that, father, husband, wife, mama, daddy, death may have come in and all of these other things. So tonight you can elaborate on it. It doesn't matter what it is. So I want you to begin to give your input. I want you to give more input of what you know, what you feel, what you've seen, what you've looked at, things that you have been around, what you experienced in ministry, in life itself, just like you were talking about on the job. So when you look at the mere fact of people that want to bargain their way out of the situations that they've been in, trying to figure out as we talked on Saturday, and I put out the post because I forgot it was Saturday and not not Sunday night or Monday rather, looking at the mere fact that what things may have caused us to be at the place where we're arguing, fussing, that cause us the issues, the trauma, the hardships, the headaches, or cause us to be in and out of relationships, breakups, or divorces, or on the brink of divorce in the relationships, or made us feel the way we felt in the relationships that we were in, or have us even at the place where we distance ourselves in the present marriages or present relationships that we in now, friendships or on the job. So we bargain with ourselves where I can do this, or we are with our significant other, we're with our husband, we're with our wife. We've taken the vows and we're telling them that we are going through with it. We say that we've forsaken all others and we're keeping ourselves only unto them, but we haven't even forsaken ourselves from certain things within ourselves, and we're going through the motion when it comes time to come together, come time to make love with that person. We have to escape within ourselves because we're not really being true to ourselves, because that's not where we want to be. We have to be in another place in our head in order to be able to be with them in the bed. So we have to bargain with ourselves. Am I really ready to do this? Do I really want to go through this? I don't want them to know that I don't want to be with him, and I don't want her to know that I don't want to be with her. So I have to go through the motion. I have to pretend. Are we pretending in the relationships that we in? And then we get caught or get caught up in things, and things are done, things are said, and now you create another world of arguments, fuss, fights, because of the fact that there's something within you that that at that moment, it's not that you don't love the person, it's not that you don't want to be with the person, but you haven't dealt with all of the issues that you need to deal with. So now you're in denial within yourself. You wanted it, but you wasn't sure about it. You wanted to be with him, but you wasn't certain about it. Notice what I said. You wasn't sure, you wasn't certain. Two different things. And now you're trying to figure out, what do I do? You don't want to get out of it, but you don't know how to be in it. You're unsure of how to go about it. You're uncertain of what to do about it. So now you have to bargain with yourself, with the decision you need to make. So now you are not in the place, so you got to find a head space to be in. So now you with somebody else while you with the person which you with, now you feel a sense of remorse, you feel a sense of regret. You feel as though you cheated without cheating, but that's not really what you wanted to do. But in order to be able to be with the person that you with, you had to find a place that you can actually feel comfortable enough to be able to lay down with the person you was with, whether it's the husband or whether it's the wife. So now you denying that it was not somebody else, and they see you looking at them, but they recognize that you're really not looking at them. So many people have been at that place. So now they decide they want to stop in the middle of being with you. So let's get to the root of it. What caused it? Or you feel as though the person is hurting you, but they're not hurting you. Talk to me. You're sitting there quiet. So we have all of these things that we have to face, and we be with people for sometimes 10, 15, 5, 20, 30 years. And this is how the relationship have gone. And now you find somebody else to become emotionally attached with while you're physically and sexually attached to somebody else, or something else have to now arouse you to be able to be with the person that you're with. And it's not because you don't want to. You have now gotten to the place that you have to gravitate somewhere else. You have now have to question whether or not you really love them, or you love them from the beginning, or you find love somewhere else in order to love the person that you're actually with. So we have to get to the root of what actually caused it. You find something about them that you love, or you actually have them to wear certain things in order for you to love them, or you feel more comfortable just cuddling. You feel more comfortable just laying next to them because you really don't want them to be within you, but you feel being with them is enough. But you never told them that's what you wanted because of the things that you had been through. But you feel ashamed now because you allowed yourself to go through so many different acts of things that you felt brought you to that place, because you thought that that's what they wanted, or you thought that's what it would take to be able to get that person in your life. And you thought what you were doing to get to know them was enough, but that's not what it was. And that's not what it took. And you really didn't understand what it took to get to know the person that you were with. You gonna talk tonight, Evangelist, or you just gonna sit there and stare off in space?
No, I'm listening.
You're listening, but this is for us to be able to help people, or to be able to break things off of people, or get people to be broken off. But we're sitting here.
We not sitting.
Yes, we are, darling.
So I don't know. I was listening to what you were saying, and it makes a whole lot of sense. But a lot of times, is it always that a person don't want to be with someone, or is it something else? You understand?
I'm waiting for Evangelist to talk.
I'm talking.
Baby, keep talking.
So my biggest thing is he know I'm not a talker, and he got me on the
Yes, you are.
spot. I talk whenever I feel that it's necessary that I object or say something in there. But a lot of times, one of the biggest things that I look at, and what I have found to be true, is that many times we have our own issues apart from each other. So whenever we tend to get in relationships, you got two people that have their own set of issues trying to make things work. And a lot of times what tends to happen is that we both have now came into a situation with baggage. And whenever you look at the baggage, one of the biggest things is whenever you start talking to each other and you start listening to each other, you start hearing that there was some similarities in both situations, but in both situations, you both handled them very differently. And a lot of times, just because you handled them differently doesn't necessarily mean that you have now came to the root of it. A lot of times it's not, because of the fact a lot of things tend to happen to us in our childhood. And I always go back to childhood because most of the time, especially like friends and stuff, and even whenever I was younger and I went through therapy, one of the biggest things is they wanted to know what happened, what brought you to this place. Or like I was talking to someone the other day and they were sharing with me that their therapist was talking about, so how long have this happened? Well, how's your relationship with your mom? How's your relationship with your dad? How's your relationship with your siblings and all of these things? But it always comes to some traumatic incident that happened in childhood that brought you to a place to where you're not comfortable, or you just feel that you're always winding up in the same exact situation over and over again. Many times we find ourselves, even when we get into the body of Christ or we start going to church, we'll feel like we're always winding up back into the same situations over and over and over again. And a lot of times we never understand, how did we get to this situation? What brought us to that? Or we'll get into relationships that resemble each other. Why? Because of the fact we never faced what it was that affected us from the very first relationship, so therefore, it continues to be repeated over and over again. Then we question and ask God, how is it that I wound up in this place? But we tend to wind up in these places. Why? Because we still seeking the same type of person. We still looking for the same validation from someone, that we tend to never really validate ourselves to recognize our self-worth. We still don't recognize what really makes us happy, because some of us, I know for myself, I've always been a type that I try to make everybody around me happy. It doesn't always work whenever you're trying to make everybody happy, because no matter how much you present yourself, no matter how much you give of yourself, someone's still not going to be happy. Someone's still going to have an issue. Someone's still going to have a problem.
Well, it's not always the fact that somebody's still gonna have a problem. A lot of times the problem lies when you still look for validation just because of the fact that you enjoy making people happy. What about making people happy really makes you happy? When you haven't faced the fact of what it is that happened either in your childhood, and you're right. And what I like about what you just said, just to put a peg for just a moment in what you said. And I really wanted you to actually talk because you said you went through a lot of counseling. You talked to somebody the other day, and they were talking about they had been through counseling as well, and there was a lot of things that you dealt with in your childhood, and so on and so forth. And these are the things that we tend to not share in relationships, or we share relationships and we build up walls. We put up petitions. We tend to hide out. We tend to hide behind, or we create different worlds, or just as you just said, what we tend to do, not only look for validation, but we tend to look for somebody that's just like that, and we recreate it. And in that recreation of that, what tends to take place in that recreation is that we find somebody to do the same thing in the same way, in the same manner, causing the same things because that's what we're used to doing, or we feel that is all we have a sense of worth of. Not that you don't really know your sense of worth. It's not that you don't realize your sense of worth. You have now created a sense of worth that makes you feel like this is all that you're worth of. And you actually find somebody, you actually have been around people, you actually have found people that know what your worth is. They show you what your worth is, but you feel worthless because you don't know what that worth really is, because that's not how you've ever really been treated. That's not what you've ever been geared That's not the standard you ever been put in position to do. You feel somebody's trying to force you to be something that you're not. You feel somebody's putting you in a position that you've never actually been in, causing you to live a way that you have never really been able to live, or live in a place that you never lived in, causing you to move on a block that you've never been on, causing you to play a position you've never played, talk a way that you never talk, dress a way that you never dress, put you in a place that you just in a world that you've never experienced, and the world that you used to experiencing, that's the world you tend to go back to, or you'll try to now cause the people that you have in your life now to become the people you've always been around. So when you find yourself that way, the cycle never ends, because you'll create that world in your mind that becomes your safe place, like we started off. So you'll now bottle these things up and you'll bring it. And it's not so much about the baggage, it's about the fact that you refuse to release it. You refuse to remove it. You refuse to be able to get to the place that you're able to move on. You refuse to get to the place that you're able to bury it, allow it to die, to decay, to begin to become the fertilizer that fertilizes your ground, to be able to cause the new flowers to grow. You refuse it to be the new growth that now falls off and become the dead leaves, or become the rubbish that you're able to burn, to become the fire that become the propulsion to push you forward, or become the fuel that now fuels your car, that drives you to the next level, or become the material that builds your building, that becomes part of the mortar mix, that becomes the cement that helps you to use to hold the bricks together in your house, becomes the copper wire that becomes the wiring inside the wire, they become the lighting tools to light your building. So at some point in time, when you get to the root of it, you find the thing that first caused you whatever the pain was. And when you realize what the thing was that caused you the pain, now you know the substance, you know the initiator, you know the culprit, you know what it was that bit you the way it was, and you don't allow it. When you recognize it again, you stop it before it gets close to you. And even if it has gotten close, when you recognize the familiarity of it, when you recognize the voice, the feeling, when you recognize the notion that it is trying to move into your territory, or it's pushing you in the wrong place. Sometimes we push back in the wrong manner. Sometimes we push back negative when we should push positive. And when we should push negative, we push positive. So we find ourselves saying things in manners that we shouldn't say. So when we find people that are trying to build us, we allow ourselves to tear down. When we find folk that is tearing us down, we allow ourselves to build with what they're using to tear us down. Instead of giving us good raw materials that would be basic building blocks to build us to the next level, we allow them to use that material to tear us down. And people that has given us good material to build us to a place that will cause us to be sustained, sustainable, and sustained for the next portion of our life until we mature to be able to be moved and transplanted, we won't allow that to happen. We find ourselves now destroying every bit of foundation that has been built around us. So when we get to the root of it, when we recognize, when we see it, do we actually put ourselves in position not to allow it to happen again? Generally, we don't. We love it. We like it. We become accustomed to it. We become used to it. So when you talk about carrying or bringing or allowing or having or carrying so much baggage, the baggage becomes the fact that we refuse to get rid of what we've allowed ourselves to be able to hold on to, because we're so familiar with the pain. That's the bottom line with a lot of the root of the problems that we have in our life. Now, is it as simple as that? No, it's not. Can it be as simple as that? It takes some time to get to that place. But when you recognize that you find yourself repetitively, repulsively, going through the same thing over and over again, and you refuse to move, because whether it happened in your adolescence, your childhood, your teenage or your young adult years, and now you are 25, 30, 40, 45, 60 years old, still going through the same thing, whether in the church or out the church, whether you have had 4 or 5 jobs, and you haven't stayed on one job for at least 2 years, and you've had 5 jobs and barely been on that job for 6 months, there's a problem. There's a source. There's something that's taken place. That's something that you have given the power and authority over to, that you have allowed to be the principality, that you've allowed to be the ruler, that you've allowed to become the wickedness in your life, that you chose not to allow yourself to mature in and from, that keep causing you to stumble over the same thing. Because you have become used to become the enabler to enable something or somebody to be able to keep you where you are. Now, it may sound like I'm rambling, but I need you to catch it tonight. If you have figured that out and you have recognized that some of the issue is that you have allowed somebody to have power or something to have power and authority over you, and you have right now guesstimated that you have been bargaining, well, I can deal with it for another week. I'll wait till the end of the week. I'll wait till the end of the month. I'll see how things are next year. I'll see how things pan out after the bills are paid. Let's see what happens. You know, they said they want to start all over. Well, they said they were sorry. They promised not to do it again. He said, she said, this won't take place again. It was just because we had a disagreement or we were going through this here. Well, I could imagine because we had a hard time and we had a bad argument. We had, you know, serious fuss that was going on. They were going through some things with their mother, their father, their uncle. We're having some technical difficulties. We do apologize.